Pues sí.
For millions of years, there was no one in the city. It sat by the water, empty, just an inert piece of terrain, where plants and animals grew up and died a million times. Earthquakes, glaciers, and floods passed through with no fanfare. Then one day, Sparla and her husband Jamqua saw the land from the top of a nearby mountain and thought it looked like a safe and fertile place to move their community. They came down from their vantage point and told a few others who were camping in a cave about the verdant land between a river and the sea.
Flip couldn't find any fulfilling work after college, and she finally had to settle on a job at a quality assurance company, where she had to check that all garbage bags really held the amount of gallons as advertised on the packaging. All day she would take different sized bags, hold them up to the sink as they filled with water, and then empty the water into a measuring receptacle. The bags always had the amount they said they did, and there were always more bags for more companies. How many different garbage bags did the world need, Flip wondered. Flip also wondered if she was the only person in the world with this job, until she was invited to a conference of garbage bag checkers in some city on an island she had never heard of. She excitedly packed her bags and took a week off from work. The conference was wild. Garbage bag quality assurance checkers had great parties, and soon Flip found herself at an orgy, doing cocaine in the bathroom all night with her colleagues from all over the world.
After the war, brothers Josh and Tim moved back to their hometown and found apartments on separate ends of the city. Tim became interested in local politics and ran for city council, losing by a small margin. Josh had PTSD from a gunfight he was in during the war, where he saw a mother and child accidentally get shot and die. He became addicted to opiates, quit his job, and played video games all day. Tim used his savings at his job as a waiter. Brian was friendly and outgoing. He earned a lot from tips and worked hard. At home, though, he was an asshole to his wife, Julie, and young child, Dakota. He didn't help out much around the house and rarely gave Dakota much attention. Julie decided they should take a family trip where hopefully they would bond a little bit. She found a good hotel by a lake, packed the car, and the next day they started the 7-hour drive up north. Brian complained the whole way that he didn't want to go on vacation, that he didn't like hotels or lakes or long car trips. At a rest stop, everyone got out to stretch, and Brian went to take a shit.
Darren went to a noise music show at the Moist Apocalypse Club, put on by his little brother's best friend Mike. It was a bunch of guys turning knobs on stage, making non-rhythmic beeps and boops, and loud bass noises while the attendees sipped cheap beer. Happy it was too noisy to have to make small talk. Darren was standing and drinking for what seemed like hours. He began to feel sick and worried that he was going to suffer permanent hearing loss. Also, his feet hurt. It felt like giant nails came through the floor and went through his shoes up into his calves. Why do people feel the need to go to events like these, he thought. At night, when he got home and took off his shoes,
Dinah was a computer programmer for a finance company. She didn't really like the work, but it paid well and enabled her to buy a condo on an island where she would spend her vacations and eventually retire. The island was owned by a corporation and was a bit sterile, but she got a reasonable deal on a 2-bedroom apartment on the 20th floor with a nice view of the ocean. When she was taking a tour of the space for the second time, she looked out the living room window, and off in the distance she saw a humpback whale coming up for air. She knew she had to live there. The first night she spent at her new place, she had a dream that, while she was swimming, the whale she had seen from her window swallowed her up. She went into its belly and, sitting behind a desk on a laptop, was the CEO of the company that owned the island. He told her that the secret to their success was that upper management always got really stoned before doing their business taxes.
Strum was a half-alien, half-human, born on an extraterrestrial planet, but who came to Earth with his human dad, Bill. His favorite thing about Earth was comedy, and Strum desperately wanted to become a comedian. He went to famous venues as much as possible and also participated in an open mic night at a bar by his apartment. He studied the sense of humor of humans aliens intently. It was half in him, but his other half was awkward and from a totally different way of life. Luckily, awkwardness was a current trend in comedy, and eventually, Strom became quite successful. His friend even made a TV show about his struggles in the comedy world. Strom used his royalties from the show to get a ticket back to his home planet, where he thought he would be well received and could share his love of jokes. No one there cared about his adventures in a distant world. It made no sense to them. He had to get a job in a factory making alien technology and never made enough money to return to Earth, even for his dad's funeral. Little
When the war started, Bill left his country and moved to a large city across the border. He had a little bit of savings and opened an ice cream shop in a hip neighborhood. He was abducted by a UFO one night and had a life-changing experience which prompted him to join a support group of fellow abductees, where he met his wife, Hilda, a graduate student studying owl psychology. A few years later, they moved to Hilda's family's home, far away from the city. The aliens found them there and took them on a deep space voyage, eventually landing on an alien planet where the couple would participate in a cultural exchange program. Bill
See what? cannibalism, violence, fire, sex, cannibalism, fire, cannibalism, fire, drugs, sex, fire, cannibalism, sex, death, violence, sex, cannibalism, fire. Violence, death. Drugs, cannibalism, drugs. Thank you so much. Violence, fire, sex, cannibalism, death, violence, cannibalism. Thank you so much. Cannibalism. Death. Fire. Sex. Cannibalism. Thank you so much.
going to run at you and sweat you. I'm going to shoot you now.
Hoist the minute body come walking.
I'm going to do a dangerous jump now. I'm shooting at. I'm going to run at you and sweat you.
Hoist the minute body come walking.
I'm going to do a dangerous jump now.
Hoist the
Scott used to drink green tea all day at work. The white porcelain mug on
Same time.
In his youth, Gary was addicted to methamphetamines and stole what he could to pay for them. He lived in a tent in a park with other thieves. They mostly stole bike tires and sold them to a shop around the corner. As the economy worsened, the group started to get too crowded, and Gary didn't like any of the others very much. He decided to try and sober up. He enrolled in a program that enabled him to live in a single-room occupancy apartment and get a job as an assistant with a heating and cooling company. A few weeks into living in his new place, after his required Narcotics Anonymous meeting, he overheard a group of UFO abductees in the room next door. He sat on their conversation for a little while, but felt out of place, having never been abducted himself. A guy at the meeting named Bill gave Gary a piece of alien technology that he could use to summon their ships. That night, Gary turned on the transponder and was whisked away into the belly of a floating metallic orb. The aliens seemed nice, and Gary told them he wanted to work for them to pay passage to wherever they were going. He met a wonderful alien on the ship and fell in love after being on board.
Hello. We are going to play a small musical composition for you on this instrument here. While we are playing, a worm is going to crawl through your phone and harvest your most personal information. It will send the sensitive data to this incubating egg. Once all the information is gathered, the egg will hatch and great mysteries will be revealed. We hope you enjoy the show.
For a time, Christian was a well-known rapper in underground circles. He made enough selling digital downloads of his albums and doing tours in small venues around the world that he could quit his job at the cable company and make music full-time. One of his tracks was used in the intro to a relatively popular television show, enabling him to make a down payment on a pretty nice house. Eventually, the TV show ended and people lost interest in his work. The money dried up. He got a job teaching music production at a local conservatory for recording arts and sciences. The school overcharged its students, and they left straddled with crushing amounts of debt and no employment prospects. Christian stopped rapping and instead got really into bird watching. One day while on vacation in a faraway country, he discovered a new and peculiar species of white duck with long teal hair, parted down the middle, and a mustache and goatee hanging from its beak.
Jacques got fired from his job for putting incorrect numbers into a database too many times. He went on unemployment and bought a sheet of acid from an old high school friend. He did one tab each day in his garage, putting on minimal techno music, and while tripping, danced alone for hours. He got in shape and his resting heart rate improved. He lost weight and was happier. Once the sheet of acid wore out, Jacques drove into town, jumped out of his moving car as it went off a bridge, and walked into a park to join an encampment of bike thieves. Grace was a freelance writer for various online magazines about city culture. For her work, she went to restaurant openings, gallery and museum exhibitions, and music performances around town. She had to write around 4 articles a day just to make a living. The write-ups were very poorly written and often had typos and incorrect information. It didn't really matter, as Grace knew the magazines just wanted the content so that they could get more money from advertisers. One night, Grace went to a meetup put on by a growing collective of radical anarchists. A few hundred darkly dressed figures met by the river at 2 a.m. on a cold winter night. They jumped into the water and began to swim. Grace and a few other onlookers pulled out their phones to film the strange event. All the anarchists were screaming with pain from the cold water when suddenly a house-sized head of some mechanical-looking beast emerged from deep below the water's surface, opened its cavernous, fang-filled mouth, and swallowed the entire group in one gulp. After analyzing all the cell phone footage, no one could tell if this was a real monster or a bizarre and misunderstood plan by the collective to raise awareness for their cause.
One day after work, Milo decided to take a different route home. He usually walked through the park, but it was getting dark earlier, so he thought it'd be safe to walk through the industrial neighborhood. The road he took turned into an alley, and the alley turned into a small path. And suddenly, he hit a dead end where there was an old rusty ladder going up a brick wall. Milo climbed up and walked along the rooftops of the industrial buildings, enjoying the view of the faraway city at night. It was quiet and peaceful up there, and he could see his apartment building off in the distance, as well as the full moon hanging low in the sky. Suddenly, to his right, next to an air conditioning unit, he noticed a strange, whirling machine with a little peephole in it. Milo gazed in and saw a beautiful, mountainous landscape of a castle by a river. It was daytime in this other world, and a deer was drinking from the stream. A mountain in the landscape opened its eyes, grew hands, and pulled the roof from the top of the castle, yanking out and eating the inhabitant inside. Milo pulled away from the peephole in shock. Looking around, he realized he was no longer in the city, but inside the belly of a mountain. Julie had been a single mother to her son, Dakota, for 10 years before he moved away to go to college. Once he was gone, she started working fewer hours at her cleaning job and got on some dating apps. She met a depressive artist named Josh, who made colorful and thickly painted landscapes that were sold in a few galleries around town. In the beginning of their relationship, Josh had a sold-out art show and used some of the money he made to buy an old stone figure. The sculpture was of a head sticking out its tongue, and it came from a civilization that once lived on the land where the city now stood. Josh put the peculiar stone carving on the dresser in the corner of his room, and when the couple had sex, it would stare at Julie, and she felt like it was peering into her soul, learning her darkest secrets. She began to have elaborate dreams about a cult dressed like clowns who engaged in human sacrifice. The dreams were so detailed she began to confuse them with reality. Thinking that she was a member of the cult and needed to make a sacrifice for the clown god, she found a good psychiatrist, began taking pills, and also turning the statue the other way whenever she was in Josh's room. The dreams eventually stopped. When rent in the city started to go up, Carl was in between apartments. He couldn't find a new place, even with roommates. He decided he'd just live in the park for a while and save some money. He didn't know what to do with his garbage, so he dug a little pit to put it in. While he was digging, he uncovered an ancient stone sculpture from a civilization that once lived on the land.
Thank you so much.
Jocelyn broke up with her boyfriend, and once he moved out, she decided to buy a sex toy on the internet. She was done with relationships for the time being. The toy was beautifully colored, shaped like the appendage of a mythical beast, and had great reviews. It came in a discreet package that the delivery man left right at her door. After her first lone dinner, she had a few glasses of white wine and tried the toy out. It was not at all like she had thought. It was hard to keep a hold of and actually sort of caused more pain than pleasure. In her excitement to try the toy, she had forgotten to...
Tammy was a capitalist, and she bought up all the hand soap coming into the city. Half of it she dumped into her pool because she wanted to swim around in a hygienic lake of ooze. But the other half she sold at a huge markup, as no one had any choice but to buy the soap from her. She made a lot of money and used it to purchase a giant water park, replacing the chlorinated water with lavender and coconut-scented liquid soap. Extremely wealthy patrons could splash around in her sterile, viscous goo all day long. The park became a hit, and wealthy people from all over the world went there to experience it. Tammy's son was a fervent communist, though, and would pee in the soapy pools whenever he could.
Roni was a rat who was born in a pile of trash deep down in the subway. As soon as he could, he left the comfort of his mother's nest and began exploring the underground by himself, finding scraps of exotic human food and meeting other rodents and insects. He also discovered that he was gay and began hanging out with other gay rats in a park above the tunnels. The sunlight was beautiful, but the outside world on the way to the park was horrifying. Giant metallic monsters with rubber wheels drove at Roni and constantly tried to crush him. Dodging these creatures to get to the park was always worth it, though. His friends became like a new family to him, and they always had the best food and parties. Eventually, he fell in love with a rat named Mike, and they adopted a few kids and sent them to the best rat schools in town. Sometimes he would bring his children to his mom's, and he and Mike would go explore new parts of the city together. Their love for each other grew deeper and deeper as the years went on.
A group of radical anarchists took a small revolution and successfully took over a sizable plot of land in the middle of the city. They got rid of all the cars and turned the streets into parks and gardens. Food grew everywhere and anyone could pick it and eat for free. In the empty chain stores that once littered the traffic streets, anarchists opened up community-run schools, experimental art galleries, free medical clinics, saunas, and dance halls. A few days a month, everyone who was able to come together and clean up would do repairs where they were needed. Life wasn't as comfortable as it once was, but it was happier, more fulfilling, and sustainable. The mayor hated the community as it was on valuable real estate, and eventually passed legislation to allow the police to run through it, demolish everything, and arrest whomever they like. A fancy new mall stands in its place. It is named Mika Plaza, after the new leader of the anarchist school. By a small tree in the vast parking lot, there is a tiny plaque commemorating her achievements.
Naomi was a somewhat unsuccessful film director who made most of her money creating videos for corporate retreats and the occasional commercial for local businesses. When she first started her career in her free time, she started writing a script about a woman who had recurring dreams of a city, only to discover that the city actually existed exactly as she saw it. The woman visited the dream metropolis, fell in love with a resident there, and followed them around the town throughout the film, having bizarre adventures. Towards the end of the story, the woman discovered the entire place was in a...
Wait, let me...
Pam earned her PhD in psychology from a pretty good school, got married, moved to the suburbs, and had 2 kids. Her and her husband were very horny people, and in the 90s they were on a reality TV show about married couples who had unusual sexual proclivities. In the episode she appeared in, Pam was seen guiding the viewer through a secret cellar in her basement where she made dildos shaped like the possible appendages of mythical beasts. When their daughter was already an adult, a friend saw the episode online and showed her. She brought it up to her mom one summer night over a bottle of red wine while they were in the pool at the family's summer cabin. Pam told her daughter that her appearance in that episode enabled them to grow a secret business and afford the very pool they were sitting in. Her daughter jumped back a bit and knocked her wine glass into the pool. The red liquid swirled around in the chlorinated blue water.
Holly couldn't stop clearing her throat. It always felt like there was something in there, and she had to grunt a little to get it out. Every 5 minutes or so, she made a noise or coughed a bit. Her and her boyfriend worked from home, and he was becoming increasingly annoyed by the distracting sounds, but tried to be nice about it, occasionally and passively suggesting a visit to a medical professional. After a few calls to the insurance company, a month's wait, and 8 hours in the doctor's office, Holly finally saw a nurse about her issue. She opened her mouth for the nurse, and he shined a flashlight down her throat. He saw a small head open its eyes and look up at him in a daze. He grabbed the head with some long tweezers and pulled out a gelatinous, worm-like creature with an almost cartoon-like face and phosphorescent skin. He put it in a jar for Holly, and she took it home as a pet. She named it Gabby and fed it vegan yogurt and apples. Even with Gabby out of her throat, she still made the grunting noises all day, and her boyfriend broke up with her.
Thomas and Richard brought their 2-year-old son to the beach one Saturday. It was a hot summer day, and they packed their car with as much as they could carry and set out for the coast. Thomas was driving and didn't notice a rat in the middle of the road. When they hit it, the car bounced a little, and their son's juice bottle opened and splashed all over the car. The two fathers began to fight about who forgot to screw the cap on tight enough, and their son began to cry. Meanwhile, the rat's brains and guts were opened up on the hot concrete, exposed to the summer sun. One of the rat's last thoughts inside its pulpy gray matter was that the city was getting much too crowded, and why did every asshole have to own a car? Couldn't people start taking public transportation again?
Samson had a dream that his girlfriend operated on him. She read an article on the internet on how to repair a damaged heart. It had a lot of easy-to-understand illustrations and diagrams. Setting up a laptop computer next to them for reference, Samson watched her cut his chest open, snap back a few of his ribs, and gently push aside his lungs to reveal his beating heart. She delicately removed a sickly, slimy film from around the pulsing organ and placed the diseased tissue on the table.
Suzanne had always wanted to start a cult, and in her free time, she developed a detailed belief and symbological system, loosely based on 19th century Western mysticism and 21st century techno-optimism. She started to release videos on social media that at first seemed like self-help and basic wellness. Once she recruited a few followers, she began adjusting her online talks, throwing in mystical symbols, wearing all white, and donning a yonic-shaped golden crown. Every day, she got a few new adherents and was engaging with them in the comment sections of her videos. She turned her home into a temple and invited people over to practice her belief system. Soon she had a cult of around 20 people who hung around her sanctuary and looked to her for guidance. She had achieved her goal, but now was not so sure what to do next. Group suicide seemed too cliché, and she was out of self-help aphorisms. She was especially tired of having so many people at her house. After a year, she gave it all up and got a job at a pet supply store.
Roni was a rat who was born in a pile of trash deep down in the subway. As soon as he could, he left the comfort of his mother's nest and began exploring the underground by himself, finding scraps of exotic human food and meeting other rodents and insects. He also discovered that he was gay, and began hanging out with other gay rats in a park above the tunnels. The sunlight was beautiful, but the outside world on the way to the park was horrifying. Giant metallic monsters with rubber wheels drove at Roni and constantly tried to crush him. Dodging these creatures to get to the park was always worth it, though. His friends became like a new family to him, and they always had the best food and parties. Eventually, he fell in love with a rat named Mike, and they adopted a few kids and sent them to the best rat schools in town. Sometimes he would bring his children to his mom's, and he and Mike would go explore new parts of the city together. Their love for each other grew deeper and deeper as the years went on.